Hi, I'm Nathan Lusk with Warrior with a Pen Games, and today we're going to talk about Hero Valley. It's a game that I created for up to 7 players. There are 7 unique characters from fantasy tropes, if you will, that players get to choose to be. And they are your typical classes from something like Dungeons and Dragons. A Cleric, a Druid, a Ninja, and a Barbarian are the 4 that we're not going to use today. Each one has their own specific speed to move around the board. They have their own attack power, their own dice that they roll when they attack. A specific armor level that has to be beaten in order for them to take damage. A certain number of hit points for when they take that damage. And a certain number of magic points that allow them to use their special abilities. And then the 3 that we are going to use are a fighter, a mage, and a paladin. And we're going to have them symbolized by these 3 different colored tokens. So we'll start our paladin here on this start spot, our fighter here, and our mage way up here in the corner. There are 3 different areas that a character can start. I just randomly put them out there. And now they are ready to begin the game. I've already doled out all of the item and opponent cards. The O's are for opponents, the I is for items, and the goal of the game is to gain the most glory throughout the game by defeating opponents. Some of those opponents are pretty easy, like a vandal or a kidnapper. Some of those opponents are not very easy, like a lich or a death knight. Some of the opponents, in fact, the last opponent at each place where there are opponents to fight, the last one is a special one, and they're put down first before the rest of the opponents are stacked on top of them. For instance, this one is a corrupted druid, and he is able to hit quite a bit harder and take a bit more damage than most of your other opponents. But he's also worth more glory or fame and money. So it's not glory, it's fame, that you're trying to gain to win the game. Whoever ends the game with the most fame when all opponents are defeated is the winner. The cash value is also important to pay attention to when you defeat an opponent. That cash value is how much money you get for defeating them. And you can use that money at the towns that are in here to buy these items from the merchants. Now, most towns have a merchant, but not all of them. Julk Hamlet right here has no merchant. And most towns have an inn, but not all of them. Zanzibar has no inn, and Lakeside has no inn. So when you go to those towns, you cannot heal back, and Riggaville also doesn't have an inn, but you can't heal back your health and magic points when you're at a town without an inn. And on the flip side, you can't purchase any items at a town without a merchant. So to find out what is in the area, you have to go to a town. And once you get there, they tell you what monster is terrorizing them recently or what opponent there is in that area for you to try to fight. And they also tell you, if they have a merchant, what that merchant is offering to sell to adventurers. So the game is very cool. Oh, I forgot, each character also starts out with cash. So I'm gonna go ahead and give each one their starting money also. Your paladin starts out with 4. Your fighter starts out with 6 coins. And the mage starts out with 8. 1, 2, 3, there's 6, and that makes it 7 and 8. And now we're ready to begin. We're just gonna go from left to right. I have the fighter, then the mage, then the paladin. Each one of them has the dice that they use to fight right next to them. And we're gonna start adventuring and find out where we go. So the fighter has a movement of 2. He's the slowest of all the characters. And so he's gonna go 1, 2, and that doesn't actually get him anywhere important, so that's the end of his turn. The mage has a movement of 3. 1, 2, 3. He's gonna try and get to Darmir there and see what's in that merchant and see what opponents there are to fight in the Dark Woods. All of the points of interest that have monsters in them, that have opponents in them, match the towns with the same first letter. So Darmir tells you what monsters in Dark Woods. The Irgus Village tells you what opponents are in Yggdra Volcano. Lakeside tells you what monsters are in the Lake of Fire. Blackstone Cave tells you Blacktown tells you what opponents are in Blackstone Cave. Joke Hamlet tells you what monsters are in Joppa Forest. Rigaville tells you what opponents are in Relic Mountain. And then Zanzibar, the town over here in the desert, tells you what opponents are in the Zanza Badlands. So you're venturing to towns, and they can only tell you what's in their area once you get there. So here goes the Paladin. He has a movement of 4. He can't quite get anywhere big either. So he's going to 1, 2, 3, 4, make his way over here toward Joke Hamlet. He's not quite there yet. That's the end of the first turn. So the second turn, the fighter will go first again, and he can make it to Zanzibar in 2 moves. And at Zanzibar, he finds out that the merchant has a flame weapon. Notice that purchasing it also gives you fame, but it costs 8, and right now the fighter only has 6, so he can't afford to purchase that. So it's just going to stay face up in the merchant there. Now, anyone else who makes it to Zanzibar can purchase that if they choose to, or if another player goes to Zanzibar, they can choose to see the next item for sale, which would put that one on the bottom of the stack and put the next item on the top of the stack. And then they'd have the option to purchase that next one if they wanted to. Going to Zanzibar also unlocks in the Zanza Badlands the Thief to fight. He's pretty small fries. He's only got 4 hit points. He doesn't hit back very hard. He rolls 2d8 when he attacks, and his armor is pretty low. So the fighter's probably going to spend his next turn or 2 killing that guy to see if he can get the money and the fame out of that. But for now, that's the end of the fighter's turn. Now it's the mage's turn. He's going to move 3, 1, 2, 3, and that puts him in Darmir, where there's also a merchant. He has found the power gauntlets, which are not good for him. He can't use them. A lot of items have listings on the side for who can use them. And in this case, fighters, barbarians, clerics, and paladins can use it. And the mage obviously is not one of them, so he can't use that item. However, the people of Darmir also tell him that they've been ravaged by, oh no, they aren't ravaged by anything. It's a buried treasure. All the mage has to do is move over to that and defeat it, which is super easy, and he will get that buried treasure. Wow, that was a really good one for him to find. It's a good amount of gold that he can use to buy things. So that's the end of his turn, though. You have to end your turn once you land on a town or a place that you stop to fight or something like that. So now it's the Paladin's turn, and he's only going to move 1 space. Actually, he's not. He's going to go all the way to Rigaville. 1, 2, 3, 4 is his movement. And in Rigaville, he sees that there is a smoke bomb, which is only used for rogues and ninja. Unfortunately, there are no rogues or ninja in this game, so no one can purchase that. And he's going to have to, later on, someone is going to have that item flipped to see what else is there. But they also tell him that there is an opponent nearby for him to fight, and that opponent is a dragon whelp. Not the weakest of opponents, not the strongest either. So he's going to consider whether he wants to fight that or not. Each of these characters has special abilities, and I'd like to go over that before we start the fight so that you can see. The Paladin has a movement of 4. When he attacks something, he rolls 4 8-sided dice to attack, and each one has to exceed the armor value of whatever it is he's fighting for him to cause damage. And you cause 1 point of damage for every die that's over the armor of the thing that you're fighting. He has 8 hit points, 5 armor himself, and he has 5 magic points. He also comes with 2 magic abilities that he can use that each cost 2. One of them is called Justice, and for 2 magic points, he gains +1 attack die this round, so he would roll 5 8s instead of 4 to try to defeat their armor. It's only usable if he's fighting an opponent that is evil, and none of the opponents showing right now have a little E on them, which symbolizes that they're evil. So there's no one he could use that skill on right now. His other ability is called Smite. It also costs 2 magic points out of his 5. And that one gives him an automatic success. So when he's going to attack something, he rolls his dice, but that one starts him off with 1 hit point already hit on the opponent that he's fighting, plus whatever he rolls would get added to that. And that is also something he can only use against evil opponents. So the Paladin really, and the Priest too, really specialize in killing the evil opponents, but they're not quite as good at killing the opponents that aren't pure evil, like this Dragon Whelp and that Thief over there. They're not completely corrupt beyond comprehension, so they're not considered evil. So next, we start over, we go with the fighter again, and it's the fighter's turn to, he's gonna move toward the Thief in the Zanza Badlands, and now that he's there, he's allowed to attack. So the fighter, he rolls 3 10-sided dice when he attacks. Now this Thief has 4 hit points, so it's possible that the fighter can do it in 2 rounds, but the fighter he doesn't want to take that chance. He wants to try and end this now. He has 2 magic points, and he has 1 magic ability called Crush, which costs 2 magic points. And what that does is it allows him to roll 2 extra dice in a round. So instead of rolling 3 10-sided dice, he's instead going to roll 5 dice by spending his 2 magic points. So now he has no magic points left. I'm going to mark those off with the blacks here. So now I know he's short those 2 magic points, but he wants to kill this Thief in 1 blow. So here he goes. All he's trying to do is beat an armor of 3. He rolled a 10, a 7, an 8, and a 10, and a 3. The 3 doesn't beat it, but the Thief only had 4 hit points anyway, so those 4 successes are enough. The fighter now takes this Thief, puts him next to his card. He remembers that he vanquished that Thief, and he gets the fame for it, which is 1 point. And you keep track of it by just hanging on to the card. So 1 fame is now in that fighter's repertoire there. He's got that as his experience. The 2 coins go on the Thief. The fighter can't actually get those coins until he goes back to Zanzibar and lets them know that he killed their Thief for them. But once he gets there, those 2 coins are his. He can also look at their merchant, stop at their inn if they have one, which they don't, and find out what other opponents are near Zanzibar. So that's the end of the fighter's turn. He had a good turn. He defeated that Thief in 1 stroke. Because the Thief died before ever getting a swing, he didn't even take any damage. Now he is short 2 magic points, but he can get those back pretty quickly. Anytime you go to a place with an inn, all you have to do is announce that you're staying at the inn, and then you roll a d4, and that gives you back however many you roll on hit points, and then you roll it again, and you get back that many magic points for staying at that inn. So that's the end of the fighter's turn. Let's go to the Mage. The Mage is in Darmir. He certainly wants to get over there and get that buried treasure because it's worth a ton of money. So 1, 2, 3, that's his total movement. And now he does not want, I mean, it's unlikely. The fighter can't even move that fast. He's not going to worry about casting a spell. All he needs to do is beat 1 hit point and roll higher than a 2 on his physical attack die, which is just a d6. He doesn't hit very hard. The reason the Mage is good is because he comes with spells. Those spells include a fireball. He can spend 3 of his 10 magic points, and that allows him to roll 3 10-sided dice on top of his physical attack of a d6. He can cast lightning, which costs him 2 of his 10 magic points. That allows him to roll 2 10-sided dice on top of his 6. He can cast missile, which costs him 1 of his 10 magic points, and that'll allow him to roll 1 10-sided die on top of his 6. He also has a spell called Magic Armor, costs 4 magic points, and it means that for the rest of the current combat that he casts that spell during, he only takes half damage from his opponent. And then he also has a spell that costs 4 called Teleport, where he can move to any spot on the map for a cost of 4 magic. So he can really get around fast, get out of fights fast, get to healing, or get to an item that he really wants, or get to a buried treasure if one of them appears across the map and he wants to go get it. So with all that said, you're allowed to use as many magic points at a time as you want. So he could cast but you can't cast the same spell twice at once. So he could cast a fireball, a lightning, a missile spell, and magic armor, and that would be all 10 of his magic points all at the same time. And he would basically roll 6 10-sided dice plus this d6, plus he would only take half damage from the person he was fighting. But these dice on his spells, those only happen once. The magic armor hangs around for the duration of a fight. So the mage is here. He's not going to use any of those spells. He's instead just going to attack the buried treasure by hand once and see if he can get it. Got it. The buried treasure is dead. He gets to roll now to see how much gold it's worth, because buried treasures are worth a minimum of 5, a maximum of 30. So let's just get out a few more dice and let's roll and see how much buried treasure this mage just got. Oh, he got a bunch. 5 plus 4 is 9, plus 4 is 13, plus 2 is 15, plus 1 is 16. The mage just pulled 16 gold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is 4, so let's get 2 more. That makes 16 total that he just gained on top of the 8 that he started with. So the mage right now is sitting on 24 gold. He can afford to buy a bunch of really good stuff. And buried treasure is a really good find. So he's going to hang on to that. He gets 1 fame for defeating it also. Oh, and actually that treasure is not his yet. He has to take it back to the town. It was 16 total, right? Yeah. There we go. He has to take that back to the town before he can claim it, just like everyone else. But he gets the fame right now. So that's the end of the mage's turn. Now it's the paladin's turn. I don't think he wants to fight that dragon whelp. He's not really good at fighting that type of enemy. So he could stay here and rotate these items if he wanted to. But instead, he's going to walk over to Joke and he's going to see what opponents they have. Now remember, Joke doesn't have an N, so there's no way to heal or anything, but he doesn't need that anyway. He's not been hit. And he turns over a surly dwarf. Little bit strong of an opponent, but he's worth a pretty fair amount of fame and money also. Not quite as bad of a fight as the dragon whelp. That may be a little bit more to his liking. He's going to see. He'll probably do that on his next turn. So that's the end of the paladin's turn. We start back over at the fighter. And the fighter now goes back to Zanzibar, claims his money, and that gives him just enough, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, to buy the flame weapon that he uncovered there earlier. So he spends all 8. He picks up the flame weapon, and now when the fighter attacks things, instead of his normal 3d10, the flame weapon allows him to roll an extra die for the rest of this game. So now he's a 4d10 when he attacks stuff. Now he adds that to his pile of things that he's defeated over here, because you do get a fame point for buying that. And he has to remember, let's just go ahead and get an extra die out. He has to remember to get that, because in the future he'll be able to hit a little bit harder, or at least have a chance to hit harder. So now he rolls 4d10 when he attacks stuff. Now while he's in Zanzibar, he is going to go ahead and flip over the next item that's in the shop. Oh, it's an animal familiar. It's only good for mages, and the mage sees that get turned up. It says your spells cause an additional die of damage in this battle. Destroy this to use it. And what that means is you can only use it once, and then after that it just goes into your pile of things that you've won, and you still get the fame for it. But it's only a single use, and it basically means that the fireball, instead of doing 3 10-sided dice worth of damage, will do 4. The lightning will do 3 instead of 2 dice, and then the missile will do 2 dice instead of 1 die on his offensive spells. So it's a one-time use, but it only costs 6. That's not too bad. And then the opponent that he uncovers in Zanzibar is a pretty strong one. It's a corrupted phoenix. The paladin takes note of that, because you see this little E over here in the corner means that that corrupted phoenix is evil. The paladin gets a bonus for fighting that if he chooses to use his abilities. That's a much better fight for him to go after, because he'll hit harder against something that's evil. So that's the end of the fighter's turn. He's finished for now. He feels good about it. He picked up a new weapon, or he improved his weapon, and he killed that thief and got to claim it. So now it's the mage's turn. He's going to roll on back to Darmir, and now that he's landed, he's going to pick all of this that he just got out of that buried treasure. He now has that 24 in cash. He picked up the fame already, but now he's got that. And he's going to go ahead and take this opportunity to shuffle the next item. So, because the one on top wasn't good for him, the next item he gets is called On Angel's Wings. It's a Paladin only, ding, 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 item. And it only costs 6. It gives you a fame of 1, and it's a one-time use item. It says destroy this to move to any space on the map. So it lets the Paladin one time teleport anywhere he wants to go. Now that he's also in Darmir, he wants to find out what kind of opponent they have there. Oh my gosh, it's another buried treasure in the Dark Woods. So the mage is licking his chops. He's not getting good items out of Darmir, but he sure is finding great opponents there. So that's the end of his turn. The Paladin now down here in Jolk, it's his turn now, and I don't know that he wants to fight that surly dwarf. 1, 2, 3, 4. He can't get anywhere but Blacktown though, but Blacktown's pretty good. Let's go see what's in Blacktown. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will uncover a new item. It is an Enchanted Acorn. Druids only use this, so if you're the Druid and this gets uncovered, it's definitely something you want to go get. It's another one of the one-time use items. Destroy this and your next spell costs 0. It has a price of 6. It gives you 1 fame, and it is, of course, a one-time use. And then the opponent, oh, there we go. There's the kind of opponent he needs to start with. It's a minor demon. It is evil, so he'll be able to use his magic against it if he chooses. It doesn't have great armor, it doesn't have a ton of health, but it'll give him 3 cash and 3 fame for defeating it if he chooses to go fight that on his next turn. So that's the end of the Paladin's turn. We'll now start over with the fighter. He does not want to take on that Corrupted Phoenix. Even though he's hitting pretty hard now, he can't make it to the Dark Woods to try and steal that buried treasure before the mage gets there. But you know what? We're gonna move that way anyway, and I'll show you why in a minute. Let's take the mage's turn, and let's just assume that the mage went for the buried treasure, tried to do it without using any magic again, just by rolling his d6, and instead he rolled a 2, which is not enough to defeat the armor of that buried treasure. So he failed at getting it this first time. So the mage sucked. The Paladin's turn, he does what he does. We're back to the fighter. Now the fighter decides he wants to go for that buried treasure. Now the mage not only uncovered that buried treasure, but also began the fight against it. And now that there's a second person coming into the fight, they now have to split the bounty. As the person who initiated the fight, the mage, if the fighter were to defeat that buried treasure, which he's about to, the mage would have the option of taking the money or the fame and letting the fighter have whichever one he chose not to keep. So this is not a good deal for the fighter. He's not going to make any money off of this most likely, but he will get 1 fame for defeating that buried treasure at the least. So he's going to try and do it. Here he goes. He just has to roll 1 die that's higher than a 2. All 3 are higher than a 2. The good old fighter defeats the buried treasure. And now this is going to be a split. And the split, the mage gets to choose. The mage will take the cash. He'll let the fighter have the fame. And because they're splitting it, it is the mage's responsibility to go back to Darmir and let them know that he found it so that he can keep the cash. So the amount of cash it's worth is, holy cow, 21 more coins. Let's get that. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what? There's no sense counting that out. We're about done here. I think you see how the game works. I hope you understand everything. The other characters, the barbarian, for instance, he moves a little bit, or he fights a little bit like the fighter, but he doesn't have as good armor, doesn't have quite as many hit points, but he moves a lot faster. And his special ability is pretty sick. It's called Berserk. He basically spends 2 of his 4 magic points, and he takes 1 point of damage every round, guaranteed, while he's fighting his opponent. He takes 1 immediately, right then. And he gains a point of armor, so he goes up to a 4 instead of a 3. And every round of the same fight in which he activated his Berserk, he gains an extra die. So in round 1, he will roll 4 10-sided dice instead of 3. In round 2, he will roll 5 10-sided dice. In round 3, he would roll 6 10-sided dice, so on and so forth, until either he dies, the enemy is defeated, or the barbarian leaves that fight. And then at that point, he'll stop hemorrhaging health, and he will stop gaining dice. He will go back to his regular 3d10. So the other characters available, the ninja, and actually my crew and I typically play, I'm missing a character. There's supposed to be a rogue also. Oh, there's the rogue. I thought there were 8. There we go. Now we have all 8. The ninja and the rogue, so you can play with up to 8 players, sorry. The ninja and the rogue are there. We have a house rule that you can only use the ninja and the rogue if there are at least 6 players, because they're very dirty. They're both very fast. The rogue has a movement of 7. The ninja has a movement of 8. And they have really cool abilities too. The ninja, his special ability costs him all 4 of his magic points. He has a standard attack of 2d10, but if he spends 4, it says use with your regular attack, deal an additional 1d6 successes in this round. So he spends all of his magic. He rolls his 2d10 to hit something. So let's say it has an armor. Well, that was a terrible roll. Let's say it has an armor of 4. So I hit it with a 7, but I did not hit it with a 4. So I've caused 1 point of damage. But then he also rolls this, and whatever number it comes up with, he hits it that many more times. So I technically would have hit an opponent for 4 total hits right then. Boom. If he had rolled a 6, then he'd have hit that opponent 7 times for 7 health, which is, that's just a big deal. And so he's really good. He and the rogue both are really good at sneaking in after something's already been damaged and then stealing the kill from whoever started it. The rogue has 7 movement. He only has 3 armor and only 6 hit points, just like the ninja. He also only has a 2d10 attack, just like the ninja, and only has 2 magic points. But the rogue has 2 different abilities that cost 1 magic point each that he can use when he goes into a fight. One of those is backstab. You use it in the first turn of a combat only. Before the combat begins, you roll 2d8 and try to smash that opponent. If it's a really small opponent, you can kill it before the fight even starts. So a 5 and a 4, it's going to hit most things. He just started the fight with 2 points of damage, and he hasn't even attacked it yet. He just used his backstab. And then he also has the ability to evade, costs him a magic point. And evade just means you spent your magic point, and after you've seen how much damage that your opponent's about to hit you for, you evade all of it. And so you get out of taking any damage that round. So the rogue's pretty neat also. They're both so fast, they're really good at getting in and smashing opponents. We talked about the Berserk on the Barbarian. Then there's the Cleric. I mentioned earlier, he's kind of like the Paladin. He gets some bonuses for fighting things that are evil. He's just not quite as tough as the Paladin, but he's got some magic abilities to make up for it. For one, he's the only character that can heal outside of an inn. So you use 2 of your magic points and you heal back a d4 worth of health. So this here. So he would spend 2 magic and heal back 1 point of health, which, it's better than healing back none. He has one that's called Bless, only usable against evil enemies. It costs him 2 out of his 7 magic points. Deal an additional 3d8 damage this round. So he would roll 3 additional 3d8 on top of his 3d8 that he normally rolls to hit things. So he'd roll 6 8-sided dice whenever he decides to use Bless against an evil opponent. And then he has one more called Blinding Light, and it costs 5 magic points, so you know it's powerful. He only has 7 total. During combat, roll a d10 versus your opponent's armor. Success means that your opponent is reduced to 1 hit point. Use this instead of your attack. It's only usable once per enemy per game, and it's only usable against evil enemies. So he could go to this minor demon that has 5 hit points, try one time, boom. So if he rolled this 5 versus that demon's 3, that demon now went from 5 hit points to 1. Now the demon gets to hit him back, but on the next turn, he only has to hit it once with his 3d8 to finish off that demon. So it's a really powerful spell. The last one is the Druid. And the Druid's kind of in the middle. He's got a fair amount of hit points, but low armor. He's got a lot of magic points, but a low attack. But he moves okay. He's a 4 movement, kind of in the middle of everyone else. His spells are pretty unique. He has Recharge. Costs him 4 magic points, so half of his 8. And he just restores all of his hit points, automatically full on health. So a little bit better than the Cleric's healing, but costs a bit more also. It costs twice as much. Then he has Entangle. Costs 2 of his 8, where his opponent's armor and attack dice are -1 for the rest of this combat. You can only cast it once per combat. So you basically make the opponent easier to kill. They have, and they don't hit you as hard. So they lose a die and they lose an armor point. And then the last one is called Enraged Beast, and it costs 6 of your 8 magic points. It's something that the Druid will use when he's going up against a much stronger opponent. And after he casts 6, his armor doubles from 3 to 6. His attack goes from 2 6-sided dice to 5 8-sided dice for the rest of the combat. He becomes an Enraged Beast and really goes after his opponent to take them down. Now, all of those, of course, after you use some magic, you're required to go and heal some magic points in an inn if you want to try and do it again later. So this is Hero Valley. It's a really fun game. We have a really good time playing it with friends, and it is it's got a nice mix of skill and luck with the dice. So a player that's really experienced can still, and kind of understands the way the game works a little bit better in the beginning, can still be defeated by people who pick it up pretty fast and have a little bit of luck with the dice. So there's always a puncher's chance in a game that involves dice. I know that the map looks pretty decent, especially from your angle. I'm going to flip it up and give you a better idea of what it looks like. Let me sort all of these away. That flame weapon, those will go there. Get all of this off of it. I'll just sort them out later. Get off of there. Boom. There we go. There we go. I made this one recently, and it's pretty new, this map. The spacing on it is correct. I may make some design changes to it in the future, but it is exactly what I wanted out of this map. It's a nice valley where the players go to fight things. And there's lots and lots of different places to go and options. There's always something that your character can defeat that's face up. There's always an item that someone's gonna want to race across the valley and go purchase. And so it really just becomes a race between all the different players on defeating those opponents, buying better equipment. Once you get enough equipment going, you really do become quite tanky no matter which class you are. They all become extremely deadly in these fights, and that's good because the boss fight in each of these levels, each of these different locations are very powerful, and you need some equipment to go into those boss fights and hope to win. Some of them are also quite a bit easier to take on with a friend. It may seem a little backhanded to go in and steal someone's kill, But remember, the person that started the fight still gets to pick who gets the gold and who gets the fame. And so they at least have a little bit of control over that. And it's not quite as dastardly as it may seem. Now, what becomes really terrible is if a third person then comes in, say the second person that snuck in to try to steal the kill failed on getting that finishing blow. If a third person shows up and provides that finishing blow, the second player gets nothing, even though they committed themselves to the fight. Because the player who initiated the fight and the player who dealt the killing blow are the only two that get paid. So the initial player would decide between just those two who gets what. So thank you for checking out this video. Thanks for coming and hanging out and talking about Hero Valley. Like all of my games, this game, I don't even have a typed version of this game. You can tell by the cards, they're all handwritten. But if you like this and you'd like to see this game at your local gaming store, I need your help. Go check out my Patreon, search for Nate Lusk or Warrior with a Pen Games, and see if there's a level on there at which you'd be willing to help me out. I need artwork for these games, and artwork costs money, and I don't do artwork myself. So I'd love for you to help me find a level there that you're comfortable supporting me at, and it'll help me get these games off the ground and into game stores much faster. In the meantime, thank you so much for coming and checking out Hero Valley. Happy gaming, and maybe we'll see you again soon at the gaming table. Have a good one.